A wealthy but lonely billionaire stepped out of his mansion at dawn. He was used to power, noise, and distance, not silence. But that morning, he saw a sight that made his heart stop. Maria, his longtime housemaid, was asleep on a stone bench in the garden, holding his little daughter in her arms. Both were covered by an old, worn blanket. He was bewildered. Why had she brought his child outside into the cold night? Was it negligence or something else? Elias Sterling was a monolith of modern ambition. At 45, the billionaire had conquered markets, built an empire of glass and steel, and cultivated a life defined by power, noise, and meticulous isolation. His sprawling estate, the Citadel, was less a home and more a fortress, cold, automated, and silent, a reflection of the man who ruled it. Sterling knew the price of everything, but understood the value of very little. He certainly didn't understand silence or stillness. On that particular morning, however, as the first bruised light of a winter sunrise bled over the manicured hedges, Sterling stepped onto his flagstone terrace for his habitual solitary espresso. What he saw brought his powerful, calculating mind to an absolute halt. Slumped on an old, forgotten garden bench, illuminated by the pale, cold light, was Maria. Maria, his family's longest-serving housekeeper. In her arms, nestled against her thin chest, was his 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Both were covered by Maria's threadbare wool shawl. Sterling's initial reaction was not concern, but a searing, tyrannical rage. Negligence? How dare she expose his child to the biting pre-dawn chill? Was this carelessness, or something far worse, a deliberate attempt to harm? He felt the familiar toxic surge of power, ready to crush the transgression with a single, furious word. He stormed toward them. Maria, startled by the crunch of his custom-made shoes on the gravel, woke with a gasp, her eyes wide with terror and fatigue. Lily stirred but remained asleep, anchored by the warmth of Maria's embrace. "Maria!" Sterling's voice was a harsh whisper laced with barely contained fury. "What in God's name are you doing? Why is my daughter outside in this cold? Where is the night nanny?" Maria's face, etched with worry, flushed with shame. She shivered, not just from the cold, but from the raw authority in his voice. "Mr. Sterling, please forgive me," she stuttered, her breath clouding in the air. "The nursery, the furnace failed some time after midnight." The room was freezing. "Lily was crying, sir. I tried everything. The main heating system is functioning, but the duct to the wing is broken." She tightened her arms around the sleeping child. "I brought her to the dining room for warmth, but she wouldn't settle. She only calmed down when I held her next to the window, watching the stars fade. I just wanted her to sleep, sir. I was trying to comfort her, and I fell asleep." She looked down at the shawl, a visible emblem of her poverty. "I put my shawl on her, sir. It's warm wool. I promise she is fine." Sterling looked from Maria's exhausted face to the faint pink blush on Lily's cheek. The shawl, Maria's only defense against the cold, was fully draped over his daughter. The chilling truth pierced Sterling's heart like an icicle. While he had slept soundly, in a climate-controlled cocoon of silk and marble, this impoverished woman had sacrificed her own warmth, her rest, and possibly her health to keep his daughter safe. He had a legion of staff, a fortune that could buy a new heating system every hour, yet it was Maria's pure, selfless humanity that had provided salvation. A person's true wealth is the love they carry in their heart, not the balance in their bank account. The quote, which he had once dismissed as sentimental nonsense, suddenly resonated with horrifying clarity. Later that morning, after Maria had been tended to and Lily was safely back inside, Sterling summoned her to his private study. It was a room where deals were signed and lives were restructured, but never had it been used for genuine human connection. "Maria," he began, his voice surprisingly muted, "tell me about your life before here." Her eyes, usually downcast and submissive, looked out the window, distant and filled with shadow. She spoke softly, yet her voice carried the weight of profound sorrow. "I had a simple life, Mr. Sterling, a small family, a husband, a fisherman, kind and strong, and a daughter, my Alara." Maria paused, gripping the worn fabric of her apron. "We were poor, sir. Rich in son, maybe, but poor in everything else. Then the storm took my husband. He drowned trying to save his boat." "And Alara?" Sterling prompted gently. "Alara was fragile. She caught a terrible fever. We needed medicine, the kind only found in the city, the kind that costs—" She stopped, her chin trembling. "I sold everything, but it was not enough. My daughter, she died in my arms on a cold mat. Not much older than Lily is now. I couldn't save her." Maria's confession hung in the opulent air, a stark contrast to the room's lavishness. She then looked directly at Sterling, her dark eyes shining with tears. "When I lost Lara, my heart became a tomb. I locked the grief away. But then they gave me your Lily to care for. When I hold your little one, Mr. Sterling, I feel the life force, the warmth. I feel like God has given me a chance to be a mother again, to give the love I couldn't give to mine." Sterling felt the first physical pang of true grief, not for a financial loss, but for a moral deficit. He was a man who owned the world, yet stood bankrupt in the face of her sacrifice. He realized the devastating irony. This woman who had nothing was giving his daughter everything he could not purchase: unconditional love, sacrifice, and the purest form of human kindness. The walls he had built around his own heart began to crumble. Sterling's transformation, however, was not without immediate internal and external conflict. The next morning, his meticulous, calculating chief of staff, a man named Henderson, approached him, holding a detailed report on Maria's insubordination. "Sir, Maria's actions constitute a severe security breach and risk exposure to Miss Lily. She must be terminated immediately and quietly. Her salary has already been calculated." Henderson's tone was cold, professional. "No, Henderson," Sterling said, his voice quiet, but carrying the force of a tidal wave. "Her salary will be doubled, and her position is now redefined. Sir, with all due respect, people are talking. This lack of discipline, it sets a terrible precedent among the staff. They believe she is taking advantage of your sentiment." Sterling stared him down. "Sentiment? No. This is reckoning. You see a logistical flaw. I see a moral debt. Maria risked her life for my daughter's comfort while I slept in my self-made kingdom. The precedent we are setting now is this. In this house, kindness will be valued above coin and character above resume. Do you understand?" Henderson paled and nodded, retreating without another word. Later that day, Sterling summoned his family and all the household staff to the great hall. Everyone, including his estranged wife, who saw the child as a distraction, assumed Maria would be publicly humiliated and dismissed. The tension was suffocating. Sterling walked to the center, Maria standing meekly near the back. He looked at the faces, the calculating, the indifferent, the curious, and then his eyes fixed on Maria. He did something he hadn't done since childhood. He wept openly. He walked past the marble columns and the priceless artwork, stopping directly in front of Maria. He then did the unimaginable. Elias Sterling, the powerful titan of industry, sank to one knee before his housekeeper. "Maria," his voice cracked, raw with emotion, "you did not just keep my daughter warm. You saved my heart from freezing over. I am rich in accounts, but you are the wealthiest person in this house, rich in compassion, rich in soul." He rose, his gaze sweeping the room. "From this day forward, Maria is no longer an employee. She lives here as family, as an honorary guardian to Lily. Her title is changed. She is the architect of warmth in this house." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the sound of Sterling's tears. The first time this powerful man had ever shown vulnerability to the world he ruled. The atmosphere in the mansion fundamentally changed. Laughter replaced icy silence. Warmth replaced cold distance. Maria attended to Lily with a devotion that transcended duty. It was pure, unadulterated motherly love. She taught Lily not just words, but kindness and gratitude, things Sterling had never learned. One afternoon, Sterling gave Maria a small, simple gold locket, intricately carved. Inside, he had inscribed a powerful, three-part message: "For the woman who kept my heart beating, she who knows that love is not a possession, but a prayer." Maria smiled, touching the locket gently. "I do not need gifts, Mr. Sterling. I only need Lily's happiness. The greatest gift a parent can give is not wealth, but the shadow of their unconditional love." Then came the true, harrowing test of the due spirit in the house. One frigid night, Lily developed a sudden, life-threatening illness. Her breathing became shallow and rapid. Sterling's power and wealth responded instantly. The best doctors, the most advanced medical equipment, all flown in within hours. The mansion became a sterile, humming emergency room. But the monitors were grim. The expensive technology failed. The doctors, sweating under the pressure of the billionaire's panic, shook their heads. There was nothing more they could do. Despair, cold and absolute, gripped Sterling. His money, his connections, his influence, all worthless in the face of a simple fever. He crumbled against a wall, finally understanding the true helplessness of mortality. Maria, standing vigil, knelt by Lily's bedside. She ignored the failing monitors and the defeated doctors. She lifted Lily into her arms, pressing the small body against her own, and looked upward. She did not address the doctors or Sterling. She spoke to the divine, her voice rising in a desperate, raw plea. "My Lord God, I pray to you. You took my Alara, and I accepted your will. But this child is the key you sent to unlock my tomb of a heart. She is the warmth I was meant to give. I trust in your mercy, not in man's means. Please, Father, do not take this little one away." Then she began to sing a lullaby, the same simple, melancholy tune she used to sing to her lost daughter, Elara. She sang of hope and enduring faith, of a love that transcends grief. It was an act of pure spiritual defiance against death. A miracle occurred in that hushed room. As Maria finished the last verse, Lily's weak breath deepened, then steadied. Her pale cheeks slowly regained a healthy, vibrant pink. The oxygen saturation monitor beeped, confirming the impossible reversal. The doctor stood frozen. Sterling stood transfixed. He realized the terrifying, glorious truth. What had saved his daughter was not science, not his wealth, but the fervent prayer, the selfless love, and the profound, simple faith of Maria. Faith, he learned, begins where human strength ends. In the quiet days following the recovery, the whispers started. The house staff, the society columnists, they speculated that Maria was a manipulator, a social climber. Feeling the weight of the scrutiny and worried about jeopardizing the Sterling family's reputation, Maria resolved to leave. She wrote a simple, heartfelt letter of thanks, packing only her few humble belongings and prepared to slip away before dawn. But Sterling, now attuned to the silent currents of human emotion, found her. He stood at the foot of the back staircase, Lily asleep in his arms. "Leaving, Maria?" he asked, not with anger, but with a deep, sorrowful certainty. Maria dropped her worn bag, tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Sterling, I have given you my heart, and you have given me a life I never deserved. But I belong in the shadows. I do not belong here. I am afraid of the gossip. I do not want to bring shame to Lily." Sterling walked slowly toward her, offering the sleeping child. "You cannot leave Maria. Where there is love, there is home. We belong to the place where our hearts are valued, not where our status is validated." He met her gaze, his own eyes brimming with genuine affection. "You are not a servant who has been given a title. You are the sacred guardian of my child and the protector of the Sterling soul. I used to believe power meant I could control others. Now I know true power is the ability to humble yourself and accept the love you need." Maria collapsed into his embrace, weeping with relief. The mansion's gates remained open, but her heart had finally found its true, permanent home. Years passed. Lily grew into a compassionate, thoughtful young woman who instinctively called Maria Mama Maria. Elias Sterling became unrecognizable. His demeanor softened, his ambition redirected. He no longer measured life by quarterly earnings, but by warm moments, acts of charity, and shared laughter. The entire household transformed into a true family where kindness held a higher rank than status. Maria eventually grew old and passed away peacefully, surrounded by the love she had so freely given. Her story traveled far beyond the citadel, becoming a testament to the quiet power of humanity. At her memorial, Elias Sterling delivered the eulogy. His voice, once used to command empires, now spoke only of grace. "She did not work for me," he stated, his voice ringing with conviction. "She worked for love, and in doing so she gave me the only inheritance that truly matters, the architecture of a soul redeemed." The core message of Maria's life remains eternal. Money can purchase every convenience, but it cannot buy the simple, saving warmth of human love. The poor, in spirit and faith, are sometimes the wealthiest teachers of all. Love, faith, and gratitude are the only forces capable of saving a hardened heart. Maria, the humble housekeeper, had taught the mighty billionaire how to be a man.